What's quakin', people? Count Richter Quake here, coming at you with my review of My Hero Academia chapters 303 and 304. So if you're a fan of My Hero Academia, go ahead and hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the notification bell for more otaku and nerd culture content. Chapter 303 starts off with Hawks and Best Jeanist offering to accompany the Todorokis on their mission. Hawks reveals that since his release from the hospital, he's been running around and collecting intel. Ray immediately drops to the floor and apologizes to Hawks and Best Jeanist for what Dabi has done to them. They reassure her that they hold no grudge against her or her family for Dabi's actions. Hawks says he used to watch old videos of Endeavor, so to hear of how his obsession led to such circumstances came as a shock to him. He then asked if Endeavor was the one who burned Shoto's face, for which Ray took responsibility immediately. Hawks commends Shoto for being able to face his parents after all he'd been through, something Hawks was unable to do with his own parents, whom we saw briefly in chapter 299's flashback. Hawks explains the gravity of the current state of the outside world, the remainder of the League of Villains and the Metahuman Liberation Front, as well as 7 near high-end Nomu were all on the loose. Not only that, Shigaraki and the Nomu broke into 6 different prisons and let over 10,000 dangerous prisoners escape, including All For One himself. On top of that, many heroes have decided to retire because of the current climate, and organizing those who are left is difficult because of the loss of the core members of the Public Safety Commission. Because of this, Hawks reiterates that Endeavor has no choice but to fight Dabi. That being said, Hawks also mentions how he notices that despite his dark history, Endeavor is truly making an effort to be better moving forward, and therefore a team up between the top 3 heroes is proposed. Since the Todoroki family and now the number 2 and number 3 heroes have all offered to help, Hawks asks Endeavor if he is willing to move forward with what needs to be done, and through his, at this point, unrelenting tears, Endeavor says yes. Hawks then tells Endeavor that the first step is to make a statement to the public in response to Dabi's little expose. Hawks had already written a statement for Endeavor, but there was one subject on which he needed some clarification. What exactly is One for All? Endeavor goes over the fight with Shigaraki in his mind and says one name. Deku? I don't think the secret of One for All is going to be kept much longer. Not only has the quirk been name dropped on a public forum, but with each new quirk Deku unlocks, it's going to be impossible to keep up the lie that they're his own natural quirks. Speaking of Deku, we then transition to Bakugou, who is so angry that Deku hasn't woken up that he had to be physically restrained in the hallway by his other classmates because of the scene he was making. He may have a very angry and aggressive way of showing it, but Bakugou truly does care about Midoriya. Hawks and Best Jeanist arrive to see the aftermath of the ruckus. Best Jeanist even addresses Bakugou by his newly revealed hero name, albeit in a mocking tone. They ask to speak with Midoriya, but Ida says that All Might asks to be alone with him. We're then shown the inside of Midoriya's hospital room as All Might is sitting by his side. All Might says that he can feel the piece of himself that dwells within One for All, inside Midoriya, and that Midoriya was currently speaking with the previous holders. Not a whole lot to talk about with this chapter, just some character interactions, some plot clarification, and one of my personal favorite events that are sprinkled throughout My Hero Academia. Bakugou showing how much he truly cares about Deku. This chapter really served as a lead into chapter 304, which picks up right where 303 ends and enters the mind of a comatose Midoriya. In the true selfish Midoriya fashion, his thoughts are first on all those he had fought beside, hoping that they were all okay. He then seems to enter a room within an abyss where he stands before 8 chairs, 6 of which have previous holders of One for All in them. Now the reason only 6 holders are seated before Deku here is because for some reason, the 2nd and 3rd holders are standing in the back facing the wall. So if you're familiar with Turtle Quirk, linked to his channel in the description by the way, then you've probably heard his theory about who these 2 holders are. And this continued secrecy around them more than likely arouses further suspicion that this theory may in fact be correct. But I'm not going to talk about that in this video. If you're curious, go check out Turtle Quirk's channel. The first holder, All For One's younger brother, mentions that over the past 4 months, One For All has been growing stronger within Midoriya, and that the previous holders have just recently become capable of communicating with one another within the quirk. The first holder also explains that since All For One broke into their domain during the fight with Shigaraki, it has become easier for them to communicate with Deku as well. Banjo takes this opportunity to reassure Deku that they won't be invading his privacy though. Once again, it seems Deku doesn't have a mouth in this realm, but it does appear to be manifesting, giving him a sort of muffled voice to speak with. The 4th holder then takes over, revealing his name to be Shinomori Hagake. This was the user who originally had the Danger Sense quirk that Deku unlocked in the last fight. Banjo then chimes in and mentions that Shinomori was a hermit who lived alone in the woods because he couldn't stand society. Banjo then tries to put his arm around his predecessor, who uses his quirk to dodge him entirely. Banjo then attacks Shinomori with a flurry of black whips, each one dodged effortlessly by Shinomori using his quirk. Shinomori then asks Deku if he knows his age and cause of death. Deku replies that he was 40, and then thinks back to All Might's notes, remembering that the cause of death under the 4th holder was scratched out. Shinomori reveals that he died of old age. at merely 40 years old. It turns out that Shinomori held the quirk for the longest period of time, save for All Might of course, choosing to avoid All for One and train with the quirk before passing it on. He did this for 18 years until the quirk broke his body. Shinomori explains that he originally thought he simply had a weak constitution or some kind of disease, but All Might's existence helped him realize the truth. One for All slowly drains the life force of its holders. So, if All Might was able to hold the quirk for 40 years and is still alive today, what is it that he has that Shinomori did not? Well, it's actually what he doesn't have that Shinomori did. A quirk. The first holder explains that a version of All Might's consciousness resides within One for All and reports to the other previous holders. He then refers to All for One's explanation of how he retains a piece of the consciousness of the previous users of the quirks he takes, meaning that a person's consciousness must be tied to their quirk. So if that's the case, how is All Might's consciousness residing within the core of One for All if he has no quirk for it to be attached to? The conclusion that they came to was that, being quirkless, All Might was an empty vessel, making him able to fully adapt One for All as his true quirk, in a sense. This means that the quirkless have the most potential with One for All. Because of that, they've decided they cannot risk passing One for All onto a normal person with their own quirk anymore. And with quirkless people becoming more and more rare in this world, Deku is likely going to be the final holder of One for All. As Deku is processing this new information, Nanashimura speaks for the first time during this meeting and asks him if he can kill her grandson Shigaraki for her. This was another actionless chapter, but it was definitely not lacking in weight. For years, people have been speculating what a continuation series of My Hero Academia could look like. Who would Deku pass One for All onto? Things like that. But it looks like, in true Chosen One fashion, Deku is the end of the line. It makes sense, as Deku also seems to be the only one who has been able to manifest the quirks of the previous holders while holding One for All. Horikoshi has mentioned that My Hero Academia is going to be coming to an end, so I think it's safe to assume that we could be ramping up to what may end up being the final arc of this story here. That being said, we still have 3 more quirks for Deku to unlock. Also, we have the Todorokis versus Dabi storyline to conclude. I'm calling it now. Endeavor dies and Shoto takes the name. Hashtag Shoto will be the next Endeavor. Not to mention, we still don't know who the UA traitor was. Shut up. I will not accept that Horikoshi just forgot about this plot point. He's not Akira Toriyama. Anyway, the biggest reveal that was promised to us that we still have yet to get is Hisashi Midoriya, Deku's fire-breathing, working-abroad father. When will we see him? Horikoshi himself promised that he would be included later in the story. Is it All for One? God, I hope not. Either way, I'm excited about what's being slowly built here, story-wise, and look forward to what comes next. And that's it for my review of chapters 303 and 304. What was your favorite part? Do you think this is going to be the final arc? Let me know in the comment section below. And with that, I've been Count Richard Quake, and I hope you have a